Good morning and welcome to my class in second day, and I hope that you have understood the first part of the video, and we are going to start the rest part of the video or rest part of the lesson, which is the jamun tree. So as we usually do that before we learn the complete lesson, it's important for us to understand the words meaning first, or to know the words meaning first, which help us to understand the lesson well. So I'm going to give you today the 8 words meaning. So the first one is luscious meaning juicy. Number second is meji, a bonfire or a pile or stack of wood like holika celebrated in north and central India. Next one is pondered meaning thought. Next one is fledgling meaning little ones of birds who have not yet learned to fly. Number 5 is embarrassed meaning felt guilty. And number 6 is placid meaning still or calm. Number 7 is fleeted meaning moved about quickly and lightly. Number 8 is astride meaning with a leg on each side. Yesterday we have seen that it was the month of January and the View Festival was approaching, and it was the time to celebrate the festival, and they wanted to enjoy and have merriment during this festival. And during this festival, each household or each houses, they used to build the meji, which we know it is a pile of firewood stacked together neatly onto the ground in their backyard. So on the first morning of the festival meji, the people used to light the meji, and they believe that by doing this they get the blessings of Agni, or we also know that the fire god is known as Agni. So after that, Ricky, one of the boys, suggested that let's have a champion meji this year. So when he exclaimed, or when he suggested this to his brother and sisters, Jonak, Monpi and Tinky, 3 of them, they means they agreed to this idea. But Monpi, she was the practical one, and when this suggestion was given to them, she saw the difficulty, the problem ahead, and she said, okay, we want to have the champion meji this year, but there seems to be the problem, and that is that we cannot have enough firewood to build a champion meji. And every year our father provides some firewood, and that are not enough for the champion meji. So that was the big problem for the children. But Tinky, another sister, she said true, and she agreed on that, and she gave more explanation, saying this, that our mother uses gas stove in the kitchen, so if we search in the house there, we will not find the firewood in the house. And further, all of them started pondering, they started thinking, they had the deep thinking about this, because they wanted anyhow to have the champion meji this year. So suddenly Ricky's eyes fell on the jamun tree, and his eyes was lit up, means he got the idea. So he said to his brothers and sisters, we can chop down some of the biggest branches of the jamun tree. And when he said this to his brother and sisters, so all of them they exclaimed, and they said, it will provide us so much firewood that we can easily build a giant meji, and we can have a champion meji. Now Jonak clapped Ricky on his back, means he just appreciated for his good idea. And then he said, by doing this, by building a giant or champion meji, we would be able to invade, or we would be able to make feel of jealousy to our friends in the neighborhood, because they would not have the big or giant meji, so by chopping down some of the branches of the jamun tree, we will be able to make a huge or giant meiji, and that will be a cause, that will be a reason for the invade of our friends in neighborhood. That is what the Jonak he said. And then Monpi and Tinky, they were also equally enthusiastic meaning a strong feeling of interest, means Monpi and Tinky, both sisters were also interested in this idea. And then but even then they had the problem. They said, how could they cut, or how could we cut down those enormous branches, huge branches of the jamun tree, and our parents will not allow us to cut the branches of this jamun tree. Monpi and Tinky, they said, and if they come to know, if they know about it, surely they will be angry. Both of them, the sisters, they suggested, the Monpi and Tinky. Now 4 of them started again pondering on this problem, and they were thinking about this, but even then they had not the solution. But they said that cutting down these trees, or cutting down this tree or huge branches of this tree, it will at least take 2 days for them, because they were the children. And then, but even then it's written, but the chance came one day before the festival, means only 1 day was remaining, and they got the chance. What happened here? Their grandmother, means these 4 children's grandmother, who was living in Calcutta, she fell ill, and grandmother, she wanted these children's parents to be with her in Calcutta during this problem. Why? Because the grandmother, she had fallen ill. So the parents, they left the hometown, and they left for the Calcutta to the children's grandmother. But before the mother, she left the house, she gave very clear instructions to the children. That is one of the nature of mother, because whenever she goes somewhere for a few days or few time, she used to give the instructions to the children. So what are the instructions she gave to the children, that we will see. The first instruction she gave, she said, don't forget to get the milk in the morning, means they have to get the milk in the morning, they have to drink the milk in the morning. And that was the first instruction. And second instruction she gave that, and remember to do the homework every day. First instruction she gave, not to forget to get the milk in the morning, and not to forget to drink milk in the morning. And second one, to do the homework every day. And third one was that they have to go in their backyard, and they have to pick the woods, and they have to go to the woods meaning small forest, and they have to pick up the twigs and sticks, means small branches or sticks of the branch which had fallen onto the ground. And mother also suggested that by collecting those, or if you collect those, you can add those sticks and twigs to your magic. And then the following days, means the next day, the children were very happy, because this was the Saturday, and borrowing an extra eggs, they just borrowed the extra eggs from their neighborhood or from their neighbors. And then these children divided their duties, especially Ricky and Jonah, the brothers. They took the, being as the older one, they decided to do the heavy job, and both of them climbed up onto the branches to cut down or chop down the branches. And Monpi and Tinky, the sisters, they were on the ground only, and they were picking up the sticks and the twigs which had fallen onto the ground. And then when Ricky climbed on one of the top of the branch of the tree, and it wasn't easy getting up and managing himself on that branch, and managing himself to cut the branch of the tree or to chop down the branch of the tree. It was not that easy. But when he had tugged himself, when he had balanced himself between the branches or between the huge trunk of thick branches, then he saw the magnificent view. He saw the wonderful view, the scene he saw there. What are the things he saw there? There he saw in the distance deep and placid river, means deep and calm and still river, which was flowing past the temple or behind the temple. And then second thing, they saw a train which went making sound toot toot, and then it was also a living trial ash gray smoke. So whenever the coal train that runs, so it releases the smoke, and when the smoke comes out from the engine, so it also releases the ash gray smoke. So anyhow, this Ricky, when he managed himself on one of the top branch of the tree, so he saw the magnificent view. I mentioned that the magnificent view was deep and placid river which was flowing past the temple, and the train was going, making a sound toot toot and releasing the ash gray smoke. And jamun tree itself, it's written jamun tree itself, birds twitter happily, means there were birds in the jamun tree, and they were making twittering sound, or they were making chirping sound. And then when Ricky he saw this magnificent view, he was forgetting about magic, and anyhow he came to himself, and he by picking up the axe, he began systematically chopping down, chop close to his body. And then suddenly, while he was chopping down one of the branch of the tree, he heard a shrill or high-pitched screaming sound of hawk kite. And then when he went close to that nest, he found that there were hawk fledgling means the small young one of the bird which has not yet learned to fly. And then when he went close to the nest, he found that there were the fledgling small ones of the hawk kite. And then he was very curious, and he climbed further, a little further, and he went, and he found that there were two little grown-up chickens. They similarly looked like their parents, means they were grown, their feathers were like their parents, but still they were the young one because they had not yet learned to fly. And when Ricky he climbed little close to the nest, he found that their parents were not there in that nest, because they might have gone to hunt for the food of their fledglings. And then Ricky climbed down. The older one, he climbed down, and he cried to Jonak. He said, "Hey Jonak, there is a nest with two young hawk kite, and in one of the branch I found that there is a nest, and that nest has two young hawk kite, and in another branch I found that there is an enormous beehive, and I think that is off, that must be of 2 years at least." And he had astride himself. He was not completely down on the ground, but before he was in one of the top branch of the tree, when he came down, he stacked himself, he astride himself, astride meaning with one leg on each side. So he kept each leg on its side of the branch, or both side of the branch. And then obviously we can't cut a side of the tree down. Why? Because in one of the branch there is having the chickens, means the fledglings, the nest, and they have their house, or they have their nest. So we cannot cut that branch, and in another branch we cannot cut, because there is having beehive. So they saw the difficulty on that, and anyhow they came down, and then still they are continuing their discussion, and they are saying that, and there must be many other nests. They are because this jamun tree is the home for many creatures, especially for the birds, and they have already seen the nest, and they have already seen the beehive there, and now they are gazing that there can be more the nest, or there can be more houses of the creatures. So they also saw the hole, and they thought that this can be the home of the barbet meaning sparrow, and then and they also saw some more holes, and they thought that this can be the home of the squirrel, because there were some peanuts inside of that hole. When both of them they climbed down from the tree, Monpi and Tinky, the sisters who were gathering the twigs and the sticks, they were strange. They were surprised, because they saw their brother down onto the ground, and they were surprised. They asked, "Why are you down?" And now Ricky, he explained that this tree is a home for many creatures, so we could not bring ourselves to cut it down. We cannot cut the jamun tree like this. And then the youngsters, they cried, "That's fair, that's good." That means what you are saying, that is good. So now still we have the problem. If we don't cut the branches of the jamun tree, then what will happen of our magic? So Jonak, he thought about it, and he said, "We can't cut the tree because we will not feel good, because if someone burns our house, how we will feel." He just felt about the result of about destroying their houses. Now 4 of them, they sat down in the shade of the tree, leaning against like this. They leaned against the trunk, and then trunk means branches of the that mean stem of the or trunk of the jamun tree. Now Ricky, he spoke that, "I think we have to forget our plan, and we should give up the plan of making big magic this year. Maybe we can build big magic next year." Now Jonak, he had an idea. He said, "Look, in our class we have social forestry project," and he said in their school, in their class, they have a social forestry project, and in this they just give some of the branch, or they just grow up the plants. They just plant the saplings. So Jonak, he said, "I will go to my class, and I will ask for subabul sapling." Subabul is one of the plant that is only grown to cut down, or for burning, and for using as a firewood. So he said, "When I will go in February or March, then I will ask them some of the tree, and we will grow we will grow those saplings, and then that we will use next year or next 2 years as those branches, or those tree we will use as making for big magic." And all of them, they were agreed in this idea. So he said, Ricky, he said to Jonak, "Get some saplings, we will plant them along the boundary wall, and it will take 2 years time to grow, and when it will grow, we will cut down it, and we will use it for our grand magic or big magic." Now father, when they decided this, the parents, they returned to their home, Monpi and Tinky. The sisters, they told everything about what had happened with the jamun tree, and what the idea they had made for making a grand magic. So father, when Monpi and Tinky, they had explained everything to their parents. Father smiled and he said, "I'm glad that you didn't cut the tree, and think what would have happened. You and your friends climb the tree, eat fruits of this tree, and play in its shade. You do several activities under this tree. What would have happened with you and with your friends?" And father explained that to the children. Now he stopped for a while and he continued speaking to their children, and he said, "It takes years and years for a tree to grow and mature and bear fruits and flowers." And he said, "For cutting down a tree or chopping down a tree, it takes only few hours or few moments." Then he smiled and said, "Come, I have brought some gift for you, and that are lying, or the gift that I have brought for you are lying in the backyard of the house." So 4 of the youngsters, they ran to the backyard of their house. They were so happy, they were delighted, and they saw that there in the backyard of their house there were 4 saplings, and the saplings were of each one of means one sapling was of jamun, one sapling was of mango, another was of guava, and another was of jackfruit. So they decided to take these saplings. The saplings were of jamun, mango, guava, and jackfruit. So these saplings were packed in polythene bag, and that were kept beside the bamboo fencing. So these children decided to plant the sapling around in the backyard of their house and around in the corners of the backyard. And then the children, they spent some time in digging the holes for planting the sapling in the corners of their backyard. And these children, they promised their parents that they will water the plants every morning and evening. And the children said that we will not cut this tree when it grows. And they also decided that there were some trees like eucalyptus and subabul, and the children said that we will cut down subabul and eucalyptus tree for big meiji, but we will not cut the jamun, mango, guava, and jackfruit. These branches, these trees we will not cut, but only 2 trees, eucalyptus and subabul. And these are the 2 trees, eucalyptus and subabul. These trees are planted only to cut down and use as firewood. So that night, as the children got ready to go to bed, Jonak said, "We may have small meiji this year, but I'm glad that we didn't cut the jamun tree." All of the children, they nodded their head, and they were happy not cutting down the jamun tree. And even though they had not big meiji, they had no champion meiji, but the children were happy and they were satisfied not cutting down the jamun tree. So from this lesson we learned that we should not cut the trees only for the sake of our happiness, but we must think about the tree and the other creatures, because trees are home for other creatures. And as we know that the tree that releases oxygen and make a favorable environment for us to live, and there are several things that the tree provides to us. So we must learn from this lesson, not cutting down the trees for our sake only, but we must think about the tree and other creatures, and we must try to plant as many trees as possible.